All right, you guys, welcome back into ByerlyStudios. Now, this is probably one of the shortest videos in the Goliath Birdeater Tarantula series. And in this video, I'm pretty much kind of locking in the overall fangs for the spider. Now, I could have made these fangs quite a few different ways, but I decided just to make them very simplistic. And I kind of wanted just fangs that I could use pretty much for whichever setup the spider is set in, whether it's passive or an aggressive stance. I just wanted something that can be used for whatever the project may be calling for the specific customer, or for maybe the need that I have for myself, right? So I'm just going to go ahead and use 2 gauges of armature wire here, one for a thicker gauge just to kind of shove into the spider's mouth there. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and kind of weld with some warm monster clay, a shorter or smaller gauge of armature wire onto the thicker gauge. And that's going to give me a really nice fine tooth point that I can bend as I need to. So I can kind of, as I block this in, bend that smaller gauge into the curvature that I need for the fangs. I want them to be very, very standoutish across the front of the mouth. And what I'll do is over the next few minutes here, I'll kind of build up the material towards the back of the fang, kind of define where the black actual fang will come away from the kind of like mandible or the coxa of the fang joint itself. I will look up the name of that and tag it in this video, so you'll see that in the top right hand corner, the actual name of that joint. But anyways, you can kind of see that fang joint kind of appearing there, and I just want to make sure that that is a nice seamed line so that whoever purchases this and casts this, and when they receive it, they know kind of where to paint that black fang. That way they can blend the rest of it into the actual jaw of the spider itself. Now, as I sculpt this in, I want these to be very prominent. I want them to be very large. Even if they're slightly thicker and meatier than they would probably be in the wild, I just really want them to stand out apart from any kind of legs, debris, or anything that may be around the sculpture when the customer paints it. We're going to have this probably sitting quite a bit up off the actual diorama base, but I still want to make sure that is very prominent and very visible behind any of the arms or legs that may be in the view of the viewer. So you can kind of see I'm going to go ahead and work with one. I like these because I can gently remove them, kind of sculpt and shape them as I need to, and then I can kind of just set them back in. And by just barely pressing the monster clay fang into the existing monster clay, it does have a tackiness so it stays in place. I'm being careful to kind of thin out those fangs without removing too much of the material and exposing that thin gauge armature wire, but that armature wire is technically visible, barely visible, at the very bottom of the tip of each fang. So sit back and enjoy. I'm going to go ahead and begin just kind of removing some material, kind of thinning them out just a little bit as I kind of get them to look somewhat uniform to one another, and just trying to get their texture and their general shape looking good before I add any kind of like hair striations or any little divots, just to add them, give them some character, you know. So all this is a simple part of the process. It is kind of fun just to kind of see something like this come to shape and fruition. And although, like I said, it's not atomically correct in every single way, it looks pretty good when it's all said and done. So sit back and enjoy. I'll catch you back in a few minutes as we start to add some more hair detail towards the later stages of the process. So I did add this small lip of monster clay to the top of each fang. I'm just trying to add a little bit of character and some dimension to them so they just don't look so flat and boring. And I'm kind of just blending that into the sides. And I want some of that to be, some of that little line of clay to be visible in some way. So I'll kind of shape that while keeping that upper lip on the top of the spider kind of visible. And I just want there to be a little bit of a shadow there, but also some dimension on the actual fang itself. So some of the spiders kind of have this little rivet there or a little ridge there as it goes into the maw, but although not all the pictures have that, I still wanted to include some texture there, just to give it some general shape. So as you can see here, I'm also going to go ahead and add 2 small divot lines to the top part of the fang. I just wanted to give it a little bit of indentation texture in some way before I add any of the hair texture with the same tool which I've been using for all of the hair for this project, which is the X-Acto knife. So here you will also notice in just a moment, I do have to work quite hard to get the tips of those fangs to be as sharp as I want. Now, even during the process, I had to leave them a little bit dull because otherwise they're so fragile during the casting process. And it's so easy for things to get trapped as far as air to get trapped in the very fine tips of those fangs. So when I do cast these, if I have to make slight repairs, then I just go into it understanding that might have to be the case. In the future, I'll probably make this into a mold with some air funnels and things, air chutes, so that it has room to push that air out the bottom and then back up to the top. But for today, when I do make these castings, I'm just going to keep them very bare bones. I'm going to cast them and then just hopefully they turn out great when I use the Smooth Cast 300 brilliant white urethane to cast those. So I hope that they do turn out quite good. You'll also notice here that I am using the X-Acto knife to apply the hair detail to it. I've said before, and I'll say it again over and over again throughout this entire series, is when I am applying that extremely fine detail, sometimes that will get worked out through the casting process. So over time, the silicone mold will kind of deteriorate and that will be less and less noticeable. But it's still worth putting those details in now. I think it's looking pretty good. And of course, I put it in the foam here. This is XPS construction foam. I've been using it quite a bit for a lot of different types of projects. But just be aware that I did that so I can easily move and turn the things as I'm kind of sculpting in those hair details. And of course, we got the separation between the fang and the actual kind of meat texture of the fang there, so where that's the hair. And then when it's all painted and said and done, it'll really blend well with the actual spider coxa. Trying to make sure that tip is not completely sharp, but just smooth. The armature wire is trying to stick out through the edge of the clay there, and I just want to make sure that there's no sharp burrs there that could cause problems later on during the casting process. But overall, I'm just trying to get that perfect medium between kind of sharp but also kind of dull, so that it just is a nice smooth piece. What do you think, guys? I think this thing turned out beyond my expectations. I really do think it adds a lot of character to the overall Goliath Birdeater Tarantula. And I hope y'all enjoyed this small little video of us sculpting this out of monster clay medium. I'll catch you on the next video, you guys.
Thank you for watching. Check out all of these awesome videos.